He held her hand as she wept, comforting her after murdering her family. There's something uniquely chilling about a smile that hides a monster. It's not the snarl of a beast we fear most. It's the calm, calculated charm of someone who looks right into your eyes and feels nothing. Meet Paul Bernardo, handsome, articulate, a picture of politeness. He looked like the boy next door, until the world discovered he was a serial rapist and murderer. His grin in courtroom footage wasn't the smile of guilt or remorse. It was something else, something colder, something hollow. This is the paradox of the psychopath. They walk among us, colleagues, neighbors, even lovers. They mimic emotion, but never feel it. They can comfort a grieving parent, while secretly knowing they caused the grief. They can seduce with flattery and destroy with precision. Their mask is flawless, but behind it, a psychological void that science is still struggling to fully understand. In this episode, we pull back that mask. We'll explore the traits, the brain, the origins, and the terrifying truth about one of the most misunderstood and dangerous personality disorders known to man, psychopathy. It's not just about serial killers, it's about what happens when a human being loses, or perhaps never had, the ability to care. This isn't a story about evil in the supernatural sense. This is about real people, real minds, and a terrifying question. What if the person sitting across from you was only pretending to be human? If this already has you leaning in, take a second to subscribe or follow the show, because what you're about to hear will change how you see the people around you, maybe even the ones closest to you. What exactly is a psychopath? At its core, psychopathy is a personality disorder marked by a profound lack of empathy, remorse, and emotional depth. It's not a mental illness in the traditional sense. Psychopaths aren't delusional. They aren't hallucinating. They see the world with unnerving clarity. They just don't care. But this raises a haunting question. Are psychopaths born this way or made? For decades, researchers have grappled with the origins of psychopathy. Some argue it's a result of brain abnormalities, structural differences in areas that control emotion, impulse, and moral judgment. Others point to childhood trauma, abuse, neglect, or emotional deprivation during critical developmental years. Yet there are psychopaths who come from stable, loving homes, and there are abused children who grow up to be empathetic, moral adults. The truth? It's likely both nature and nurture, a toxic cocktail of genetic vulnerability and environmental triggers. But here's the key distinction. While many mental health conditions cause distress for the person who suffers, psychopaths rarely feel distressed. They don't lie awake at night, tormented by guilt. In fact, many don't think there's anything wrong with them at all. They're not broken. They're just different. And that difference, the absence of conscience, makes them dangerous in a way that defies easy explanation. Because when a person has no empathy, no remorse, and no moral compass, what's left to stop them? In 1941, psychiatrist Hervey Cleckley published a landmark book titled The Mask of Sanity. In it, he described a disturbing phenomenon: individuals who appeared entirely normal, even charming on the surface, but who harbored a terrifying emotional emptiness beneath. Cleckley's central idea was simple, but chilling. Psychopaths wear a mask, a flawless disguise of normalcy. They speak well, hold steady jobs, and mimic emotion with unnerving skill. But underneath, there is no true feeling, no empathy, no remorse. This is what makes psychopathy so dangerous and so deceptive. Unlike those with overt mental illness, psychopaths don't raise immediate red flags. They don't rant in public or struggle with reality. In fact, they often thrive in it. Their superficial charm allows them to manipulate, seduce and exploit with surgical precision. They say all the right things. They make you laugh. They tell you exactly what you want to hear. But every smile, every gesture of concern, every moment of intimacy, it's all performance. There is no real behind the mask, just calculation. Many victims of psychopathic manipulation describe a surreal experience, falling under someone's spell, only to slowly realize the person they trusted never truly existed. And by the time the mask slips, it's often too late. The horror of psychopathy isn't always in what they do, but in what they don't feel. Imagine someone capable of faking love while plotting betrayal, smiling as they destroy you, simply because it serves their purpose. That's the psychopath's greatest weapon. Not rage, not violence, but the perfect illusion of humanity. If you met a psychopath, would you know it? You'd think so, but the reality is far more unsettling. Psychopaths don't walk around with flashing warning signs. Instead, they often come across as charismatic, confident, and even likable. But beneath that polished exterior lies a chilling constellation of traits, each one a fragment of something deeply inhuman. The most widely accepted diagnostic tool for psychopathy is the Psychopathy Checklist Revised, PCLR, developed by psychologist Dr. Robert Hare. It's a 20-item inventory used to assess the presence of psychopathic traits. Let's look at some of the most defining. Superficial charm. They're persuasive, likable, often magnetic, but it's all skin deep. Grandiose sense of self-worth. Arrogance isn't just present, it's built into their identity. Pathological lying. Not just frequent lies, but lies told effortlessly and without remorse. Manipulativeness. They don't just deceive, they engineer people for their own ends. Lack of remorse or guilt. They can destroy lives and feel nothing. No shame, no second thoughts. Shallow affect. Emotions when shown are hollow, mimicked, not felt. Callousness and lack of empathy. Pain doesn't register. Not theirs, not yours. Impulsivity and irresponsibility. They chase stimulation. Consequences be damned. These traits don't always manifest violently. In fact, many psychopaths avoid crime altogether. Instead, they excel in environments where manipulation is rewarded. Boardrooms, politics, finance. Psychopathy isn't just a diagnosis, it's a blueprint for predation, a design for exploitation without conscience. They see relationships as tools, people as pawns, and emotions as nothing more than vulnerabilities to exploit. Are psychopaths born or built? It's a question that haunts researchers, survivors, and society alike. Is psychopathy an unavoidable outcome of biology, or the tragic result of a broken upbringing? The truth is complex and disturbing. Biology plays a powerful role. Studies show that psychopaths often exhibit differences in brain structure and function. The amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fear and emotional processing, is frequently underactive. The prefrontal cortex, which governs impulse control and moral reasoning, may also be impaired. These neurological differences suggest that some people may be born wired for callousness. But environment matters too. Childhood abuse, emotional neglect, exposure to violence, the absence of secure attachment during formative years. These factors don't necessarily create a psychopath, but they can shape how psychopathic traits develop and escalate. In children already predisposed, trauma can sharpen those traits into dangerous tools. And then there's the unsettling middle ground. Some psychopaths come from seemingly normal homes. No overt trauma, no abuse, just emptiness. This has led some psychologists to believe that psychopathy may arise from a complex interplay, genetic vulnerabilities triggered by subtle long-term emotional deficits. In other words, it's not always a monster that makes another monster. Sometimes it's just a void, a lack, a cold space where empathy should have grown, but never did. So when we ask, are they born or made, the answer may simply be both, a war between biology and experience, with the loser being everyone in their path. What happens inside the mind of someone who feels nothing? Neuroscience has taken us deep into the brain of the psychopath, and what it reveals is both fascinating and frightening. Functional MRI fMRI scans show that psychopaths process emotions very differently from the rest of us. When exposed to images of suffering, crying children, violent injuries, fear, the typical brain lights up in regions associated with empathy and emotional resonance. But in the brain of a psychopath, silence. Especially in the amygdala, the center of emotional processing and fear response. In many psychopaths, this region shows reduced activity, meaning they can see your pain, but it doesn't register emotionally. Another key area is the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which plays a major role in decision-making and moral reasoning. In psychopaths, this region often displays dysfunction or underconnectivity with other emotional centers. The result? Decisions made with cold logic and zero conscience. Interestingly, when asked to pretend to feel emotion, some psychopaths can switch on parts of their brain that simulate normal emotional reactions. This suggests they know how to imitate feelings, but only when it serves a purpose. They're not unaware, they're just detached. Their smiles are real but not felt, their charm rehearsed, their sympathy a mimicry with no heartbeat behind it. What you see isn't who they are, it's who they want you to believe they are. And neuroscience proves the mask doesn't just hide the monster, it replaces the human. When you hear the word psychopath, you probably imagine a serial killer, a sadistic criminal, or a madman behind bars. But many psychopaths don't commit violent crimes. In fact, some wear tailored suits, give TED Talks, and run billion-dollar companies. Welcome to the world of the successful psychopath. Studies suggest that psychopathic traits like charm, ruthlessness, fearlessness, and emotional detachment can actually be assets in certain environments, especially in high-stakes fields like corporate leadership, law, politics, and finance. Think about it. Who succeeds in a cutthroat business landscape? Someone who can make cold decisions without hesitation. Someone who won't lose sleep over layoffs. Someone who can manipulate a boardroom with ease. Psychologist Dr. Kevin Dutton, in his book, The Wisdom of Psychopaths, argues that psychopathy exists on a spectrum, and at moderate levels, it can fuel ambition, confidence, and control. Not all psychopaths are killers. Some are CEOs, surgeons, lawyers, and sales executives. These individuals often display what's called the dark triad of personality traits: psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism. They don't break the law, but they bend people. They don't assault you, but they drain you. You'll never see them coming because they don't look dangerous. They look successful, and that's the terrifying part. Because in the boardroom, just like on the crime scene, a lack of empathy can still leave victims. Only here the wounds are psychological, and the damage is hidden behind contracts, promotions, and power plays. To truly understand a psychopath, you have to listen to one, not in theory, not through textbooks, but face to face with the predator behind the smile. In interviews with diagnosed psychopaths, a pattern emerges, not of chaos but of calm detachment. Many speak about manipulation the way a mechanic might describe fixing an engine: methodical, unemotional, precise. One inmate, convicted of multiple violent crimes, described his victims not as people, but as obstacles to be removed. No rage, no hate, just strategy. Another said, "I don't feel guilt because I don't see a reason to. If I gain something, and you lose something, that's just how life works." There's no flicker of shame, no cracks in the mask, just a chilling logic that views emotion as weakness and people as tools. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of these conversations isn't what they say, it's how they say it. They smile, they joke, some even flirt with the interviewer. Their charm is effortless, rehearsed over a lifetime of learning what emotions look like, without ever truly feeling them. These aren't raving lunatics. They're calm, composed, and eerily self-aware. Many admit they don't care who gets hurt, only whether they get caught. Dr. Robert Hare, who's interviewed countless psychopaths, once said, "You're talking to a person who has no soul. You're looking into eyes that are flat, and yet they're studying you, calculating." When psychopaths speak, they don't reveal madness. They reveal strategy, a cold, calculating intelligence that uses words as weapons and silence as control. And what's most terrifying, they don't think they're the problem, and they think you are. Falling in love with a psychopath doesn't feel like falling into danger. It feels like being chosen. They move fast, sweeping you off your feet with intense attention, charm and flattery. You're their soulmate, their perfect match. It feels too good to be true, because it is. This phase is called love bombing, the first step in a carefully calculated emotional trap. Once they have you hooked, the mask starts to slip. Suddenly, there are mind games, lies, gaslighting. Intimacy turns into control. Affection becomes reward-based. You're punished with silence, then pulled back in, with just enough warmth to keep you confused and attached. Psychopaths don't form real emotional bonds. To them, relationships are transactions. You are a resource, something to extract attention, sex, money, or power from. When they're done, they discard you without remorse. No closure, no explanation, just a vanishing act that leaves devastation in their wake. What's worse, you're left questioning your sanity, your worth, your reality, and they walk away, smiling. Because for the psychopath, love isn't love, it's leverage. In the darkest corners of the justice system, psychopathy doesn't hide, it thrives. Studies suggest that up to 25% of the prison population meets the clinical criteria for psychopathy, a number far higher than in the general public. But unlike other offenders, psychopaths don't act out of impulse or desperation. They plan, they manipulate, they calculate. They're the masterminds behind cons, scams, violent crimes and serial offences. Not all violent criminals are psychopaths, but the most chilling ones often are. Think of Ted Bundy. Handsome, articulate, terrifying. He lured victims with a fake injury, gaining their sympathy before attacking. Or Charles Manson, who never directly killed, but manipulated others into doing it for him. Then there's Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, whose complete lack of remorse chilled even seasoned investigators. What sets psychopathic criminals apart isn't just what they do, it's how little they care about it. No guilt, no empathy, no hesitation. Even in prison, they often manipulate fellow inmates, charm parole boards, and game the system. Rehabilitation rarely works because they see therapy not as healing, but as another opportunity to deceive. In the criminal world, the psychopath isn't just another prisoner, they're the predator behind the bars. Can a psychopath be cured? It's the question therapists, families, and victims have been asking for decades. The answer is as unsettling as the disorder itself. Most experts agree. True psychopathy is largely untreatable. Traditional therapy doesn't work because it relies on emotional insight, remorse, and a desire to change. Psychopaths lack all three. They often see therapy as a game, manipulating therapists, mimicking progress, and learning how to better conceal their behavior. Some studies have even found that therapy can make psychopaths more dangerous, teaching them new psychological tools to exploit others more effectively. There are ongoing efforts to intervene earlier, especially in children with callous unemotional traits, a potential early sign of psychopathy. With specialized intensive treatment, some show improvement. But once these traits are deeply rooted in adulthood, change is rare. This isn't about healing a wound. It's about trying to plant empathy where none has ever grown. So, can they be cured? Not with our current tools, not in most cases, and perhaps the more terrifying question is, do they even want to be? Psychopaths don't wear signs. They wear charm, confidence, and calculated warmth. So how can you tell if you're being manipulated by one? The red flags are subtle, but devastating. Too perfect, too fast. They idealize you early on. It feels like fate, but it's strategy. Inconsistent stories, details shift, lies unravel slowly, but you're left doubting yourself, not them. No empathy. When you express pain, they deflect, minimize, or twist it back onto you. Control masked as care. They monitor your life under the guise of just wanting to help. You feel drained, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Relationships with them are one-sided, always. The goal isn't connection, it's control. If you confront them, they'll deny, gaslight, shift blame. And if they sense they've lost their grip on you, they'll either intensify the manipulation or disappear without a word. Your confusion isn't a sign you're weak. It's a sign their mask is working. The best defense? Distance, clarity, boundaries. Once you recognize the pattern, step back, because no amount of love, logic, or loyalty can fix what was never real to begin with. You're not crazy. You're being played. Why are we so obsessed with psychopaths? They dominate our screens. Hannibal Lecter, Tom Ripley, Amy Dunn. We binge true crime documentaries, dissect cold cases, and devour interviews with killers as if they hold some forbidden truth. But what draws us in? Psychopaths represent the ultimate contradiction, a human face with inhuman instincts. They break the unspoken rules of empathy, love, guilt, everything we rely on to function as a society. Watching them is like watching a glitch in the Matrix, and we can't look away. They're seductive in fiction because they're free of fear and shame. They do what we don't dare. They're calm under pressure, decisive, ruthless, and terrifyingly effective. In a twisted way, they embody traits we often admire in leaders, heroes, survivors. But beneath that allure is something darker. We want to understand the monster so we can spot it, control it, survive it. We stare into the abyss hoping knowledge will protect us. Yet fascination comes with risk. The more we glamorize the psychopath, the easier it becomes to forget the devastation they cause. They're not puzzles to solve, they're predators to recognize. In the end, the true terror of psychopathy isn't found in bloodshed or violence. It's found in the silence behind the smile, in the calculated gaze that sees your pain and simply doesn't care. Psychopaths remind us of what humanity looks like when stripped of conscience. No guilt, no love, just the cold pursuit of power and pleasure. We wear emotions on our sleeves. They wear a mask. And sometimes the scariest monsters don't hide in shadows. They sit beside us smiling, while we search their eyes for something that was never there. Empathy. We've seen what happens when a person feels no guilt, no fear, and no empathy. But what if that emptiness didn't stand alone? What if it worked alongside ego and strategy? In our next episode, we uncover what happens when narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy converge and form the dark triad. Thanks for watching. See you next time.